But at the very least, he's putting himself in a position to be as successful as he can be. And it's been fun to watch him work along with a lot of the other rookies, and obviously my viewpoint is the quarterbacks, and those guys have been great too. Like the other quarterbacks in the room. I mean, Sam Hartman is the other rookie quarterback with him. They've already had a great rapport before they got here. They did some training, and so they've been working hard together. But then the two vets we have in the room have been awesome. Like for our room in general, but then for those two young guys who they're able to bounce ideas off of. Hey man, how do you see this? And, there's so much good in that, because I think there's so much interaction that both sides do a great job of. Being gracious, like the older guys being gracious with their time, their energy, their thoughts, and then the young guys being vulnerable and saying, "Hey man, how do you do this?" And I think that's been such a cool element of our quarterback.
What's an example of a time that Marcus has helped him out with a concept, whether that was a specific player, specific concept?
I'm trying to think of maybe a recent one. We talk a lot about situational football. And so, there's so many permutations of how a certain 2-minute drill could go. I think sometimes just hearing, like we were watching a 2-minute drive in the meeting room the other day, and I like opening it up.
From practice you were watching?
No, I'm talking about we take examples of around the league in different years, and we were watching one, and Marcus just brought up, hey, I remember when I think it was an example from Tennessee, like a 2-minute drill. And he's like, this happened, this happened, this happened. And he just kind of talked me through it and talked us through it. And I think those things are always good, because you never know when certain situations are going to come up in a game, in a 2-minute drive. But that's where it's just good to have the experience that we have in that room for different guys to be able to draw on. So that's one way that it came up.
How have you seen Jayden develop in 2 minutes? Because Dan was saying that's really important for a rookie, because it's different in college when they come about.
You said, how has he been doing with that? Yeah, really well. Again, like he and Sam study, right? And that's part of it. It's just like knowing, hey, what are the rules? How are they different? So how do I need to adjust? But then it's like learning, hey, what plays are we going to run? How's our system going to go? What are certain kind of situational calls that we're going to use in different spots? So being familiar with those, having those on the tip of your tongue, because that's the name of the game, right? It's like being able to draw on those things quickly, knowing, hey, we're in this situation, boom, we got to get to this. So he's been doing a great job. Sam's been doing a great job as young guys of really just taking that on and learning that.
He was saying how quickly data processes is one of the things he most appreciates. What's the time of practice you saw that processing data?
With the processing, I like one thing I've always been big on in my career coaching quarterbacks is like just being decisive. And obviously decision making and making the right decision is big, but sometimes just like waiting can be such a detriment that even if you would have made an okay decision at that point. And I think that's one thing that Jayden does really well is like he plays with a lot of conviction. One way that's shown up is like, as we get through progressions, one thing, I mean, in the NFL, these guys are open for short periods of time, and then those windows are closed. So like when you're moving from a primary receiver to maybe the second in your progression, you got to have that thing ready as you're moving to number 2. And that's shown up a couple of different, it's shown up more than a couple of times, but I'm thinking of a particular progression the other day where he was throwing number 2, and just what I'm talking about, like he came back knowing he was going to throw it, instead of coming back to see it and then throw it, like he's coming back knowing he's going to throw it and just rip it. And so it's showing up in progressions and showing up in like certain checks he has to make at the line of scrimmage, whether it's in protection or in the run game or changing a route. And so, those are a couple instances.
To me, when I see Dorrance swat a pass down yesterday, I'm like, that's good for that to happen. And because if you don't have it happen now, how do you learn before it gets out? What was going on in that?
Was it the one where Dorrance was on the...
He was on his left.
He was on the left side.
I guess right edge for him.
It was right edge for him. I'm trying to remember which one exactly. It was at the line of scrimmage. He got batted down. I know. Was it the 2-minute drill?
No.
Were you guys there for the 2 minutes?
Yeah, we were, but I don't think it was 2 minutes.
It was in the first. It was in just the 11 on 11.
And he threw it like immediately. I mean, Dorrance was just like there, and it didn't come out.
I think that was just a quick game concept that we had called.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those things are like, you just got to understand that, like, this goes a little bit to what I was talking about with like the length of the season, the consistency is like one thing that every rookie's got to come to grips with is like there's really good players on this team.
Yeah.
And you're going to have plays where like, hey man, he made a good play.
Yeah.
You know, like
right.
that guy got a hand on it. And certainly like we're going to coach some things, hey, how can we avoid that happening?
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, like, there's some times where that guy's going to get the better of it.
Right.
You know, so if I remember that one correctly, it was a case where Dorff had a really good play on the ball.
Yeah.
And so the coaching then becomes, how can we maybe adjust? But more so, it's like, how do I move on to the next thing? You know, and maybe it's a 2nd and 10 now, and I got to make sure we do what we do. And that, you know, moving to the next thing is as big a part of the coaching as anything.
For sure.
Yeah.
My last one, I'll give one.
Yeah,
I think Jahan had said that Jayden came to my
Jahan.
Jahan said a couple days ago they missed on some deep balls who weren't there. And Jayden's like, hey, let's stay after and work on this. Were you there for that?
Well, so that's another really cool element of one of the things that DQ is big on is like we have marked time for like time at the end of practice for guys to get better.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is. Like is it a route we missed? Is it a certain footwork thing I'm working on? And if it wasn't during that time, it would have been after that. But like I think the emphasis and the focus on like development, even in a league where people say like it's not a developmental league, it's like that doesn't mean you can't get better.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that was a big part of like that is a big part of the culture and the air we breathe around here is like there's an emphasis on improving every single day. So I think the guys are really that's an example of like buy-in across the board of guys like knowing they want to compete, they want to get better, they want to emphasize that as well.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate it. Great to meet you.
Yeah,
anytime
good to meet
I
you
can
too.
help, let me know.
All right, appreciate it. We'll get that holla going.
I need your recipe.
Good to see you.
How you doing, man?
So obviously we got to talk about Jayden, right? So just overall, kind of what are your thoughts on Jayden so far?
Yeah, Jayden's been doing a great job. You know, just like showing up to work every day. There's a lot of consistency in who he is, and the guy that shows up every day to work, competes his butt off. You know, and I think he's done a really good job of just like that consistency element of being the same guy every day. His teammates appreciate it. I know the staff appreciates it. And that goes for Sam as well. Obviously, I got 2 rookies in the room, and just to see those guys come to work every single day, you know, being the same person, knowing that there's going to be bumps in the road and ups and downs, but just like man showing up has been just cool to see.
So we've heard multiple people talk about how impressed they are with him and his early command of the offense. Are you kind of on that same page as well?
For sure. Yeah, I think you know, and you know, Cliff and the offense that we run, the system we run, you know, part of the emphasis too is like designing the system, you know, not to make it easy or simple, because obviously you can't be too easy or simple to then go attack an NFL defense, but at the same point in time, like there's a lot of thought and intent put into how are these guys going to learn it, you know, and so I think it's hats off to Cliff too on designing a system and going about it in a way for not just Jayden to learn it well, or not just the rookies, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, everybody's a rookie in this offense, right? So I mean, the command of picking it up that's true of everybody. So I think Cliff and our staff has been really thoughtful about, hey, how do we design this thing to lessen the learning curve, to make that ramp up go as quickly as possible, because we need that to do what we want to do in the fall.
And then it was kind of indicated that fairly early on in the process, you guys kind of zeroed in on Jayden for the NFL draft. What was it that sticks out in your mind from his college tape that really kind of stood out to you about him?
Yeah, I think you know, I had the I say privilege,
yeah.
but I'll lessen that word. I did have the opportunity to see him early in his career because I coached against him when I was at Stanford and he was at Arizona State, and I remember a very athletic version of. I remember a very athletic young quarterback who was like, wow, this guy's got something, and. Fast forward to then I evaluated him for the draft, and I just remember seeing this like incredibly polished, athletic passer who I mean honestly, like I don't think he had a bad game this last year. I mean I'm just watching game after game, clip after clip, and he's just dialed and just dicing up defenses with his legs, with his arm. He's processing, the ball is coming out. I mean all things that you need to translate to this level were present in his tape. But I think the most important thing that was identified as we went through that process was just the culture fit that he is here, right? Like we've talked about the competitiveness, we've talked about how he works, his love for football. Like those are things that DQ preaches day in and day out. And to find a quarterback, and it's consistent of everyone. Obviously, having been here last year, consistent of everyone we brought in on staff, everyone we brought in the draft and free agency. Like there's commonalities there,
right.
you know, and so that's true of Jayden as well.
Does it help having two rookies be able to go through this process together?
Yeah, and they knew each other.
Yeah,
and they knew each other.
Too.
Yeah, and they're older, but they have a great rapport, and yeah. So for them to kind of have each other, to know, hey, we're both rookies in this thing, we're both learning as we go. That has been incredibly helpful for both of them to be able to have that. And then, you know, I got two older guys, you know, two vets in the room, which has been great for both sides. Just be able to, you know, share some of that knowledge, some of that experience, and then for those younger guys to have resources that they can go ask. I mean, right there.
Speaking of the road, how has David Blau transitioned into coaching?
Dude, Blau's the man. I love his energy. Love the way he works. You know, we got so many great minds on our offensive staff, but obviously I get to work closely with him. He's a phenomenal person, and he's, you know, obviously young in this coaching thing, but he's a star, man. He's gonna be great.
Hey, Coach, as these guys go into veteran minicamp next week and they take that break before training camp, what is the message that you want to leave with them in being prepared and getting ready for when they come back in late July for training camp, the real deal?
Yeah. What do we want to leave them? You know, I think it's really just finishing this offseason strong. You know, we had one chance at this first offseason with DQ, with AP, with this new group, and I think it's just finishing this chapter strong so that we can position ourselves to come back after the break and hit the ground running. You know, and so I think that will be a function of how we finish with this last OTA and then the minicamp next week.
Has anything surprised you about just the process of learning the playbook and putting it out there as the coaches and they had said crawl, run, and walk,
yep.
But in learning that playbook and the process and then going out on the field and putting that into play, has anything surprised you about what you see in that process of learning the playbook?
Oh man, I think in learning the playbook for me, and then seeing the players, you know, have to learn it too. We were just talking about, I don't know if you were here, but you know, I think Cliff, you know, getting to see Cliff work and Cliff interact and support us on staff. Like, I think what's been really cool is like he has no ego. He obviously has a phenomenal offensive mind, but the way that we think about our guys learning it is awesome. I mean, the way that we're intentional about, hey, how are they going to retain this? How are they going to learn it? How do we structure practice and meetings? And what's going in, what's being installed in a way that's going to maximize their ability to learn and retain this. I think that's been surprising, if you will. You know, is just the focus on those guys and focus on putting them in the best position. And that's been fun to learn as we've gotten underway with this offense.
And in veteran minicamp next week, what are you hoping to see in that final stretch?
Man, competition. You know, I think it's something that gets preached around here all the time, but I think to see our guys compete, to have energy, I mean, that's how we're going to go into this offseason feeling good. That's the way we will show that we finish strong. Is if these guys come out with energy and they compete next week, and we get after it and get better, because we can close some distance in the team we want to be tomorrow and then next week if we really want to. Yeah, you got it.
Coach, I was going to ask, you mentioned a moment ago about you have two vets and two rookies.
Yeah.
So how has that process been in just building the camaraderie with the quarterback?
Oh, it's been awesome, and so much of it is just the older quarterbacks, how gracious they are with sharing information, sharing experiences, and then the curiosity of the younger guys and their vulnerability to say, hey, tell me about this, let me know about this, and asking questions. And that's been such a good way for our room to connect and kind of come together. And that's been, man, it's been a really cool thing for me to get to witness and be a part of.
We've oftentimes heard the term collaborative used in terms of how you all are making decisions,
Very
how you
much
all
so.
are working together.
Yeah.
So how has that approach been with the offense as a whole, and then specifically you with Coach Kingsbury?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is. couldn't say it better based on just how you asked your question. Just the collaboration. Cliff doesn't have an ego, right? He's had a ton of successful offenses, quarterbacks, you name it. But he comes into this thing saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, how do you think we should run this route?" Because he wants to hear everyone's ideas and their thoughts and their opinions. And we're very much of a mind of like all of us are smarter than one of us. And so I think that's something that we live out every day. And if we can get to the best answer, it doesn't matter whose answer it was, but that will be the result.
I imagine when rookies come in, they can be like, personality-wise, it's like being a little more reserved
Sure.
or on their best behavior.
Sure.
How long did it take you to figure out Jayden who he was day one, or like how did that process?
Oh, it went pretty quick. He's comfortable in his skin, and I think that's something that there's a calming effect there, because we as humans, like if we see that, sometimes we tend to be that way too, a little standoffish or what have you. But like he's open. There's no pretenses. He's somebody that he's easy to be around because he's confident in who he is, and he does a great job of bringing other people into that.
Obviously, the position, having played it like that. It's not just complete passes that's important, but it's the command of the locker and the huddle, getting respect of the guys. That comes in different ways. You talk to him about that aspect of not just throwing the ball, but like how to be that guy, or is it just for him? It seems pretty obvious.
Oh, all the time, and that's one thing that'll come up is we're talking about veteran presence in the room, and the two rookies, Sam and Jayden, is like that's one of the uniquenesses about the NFL when you talk about it relative to being in college. It's like the age delta, right, of the oldest to the youngest is way different in college than it is in the NFL, and so it's being able to carry yourself in a way. I think the biggest thing is being yourself. Not trying to be somebody else, not being fake, so to speak. And I think being genuine goes a long way because nobody's the same, right? Like we're all humans and we all have our different interests and values and way that we move about the world. But I think when you're genuine and you are who you are and you're unapologetic about that, I think that goes a long way. And so we absolutely talk about, hey, what's the best way to talk to the receivers or rope in those offensive linemen so that we can get to be the best version of our offense. That certainly is talked about.
You guys, obviously, you have a plan in terms of like the off-season work, then in the training camp, one way or the other. For a guy like him, is it day to day on this day we want to do this or next week, and to that end, how much does it get sped up because he's picking things up maybe quicker than you thought or something like that?
In some ways, it's very systematic. In other ways, it is a little bit more like, hey, let's go the speed we need to go to make sure. Because the biggest thing is making sure that there's a lot of clarity around how we're learning it, and not just like, okay, yeah, we got it all done. Because if they don't know it or they know it in certain spots, then that's only so effective, right? So it's a little bit of both. It's a both and of like, let's see how fast we can go, and then plan it out, just knowing exactly where we need to be, when we come back in July.
And so that then knowing you'll take your time. Is there a point though when you can look ahead at training camp, like kind of excited to see him in week 2, or when we get to this part of 11 or whatever it is, you're like, okay, this will be an interesting point in time to see kind of where he is.
That's a good question. I think that's probably a better question for Cliff. Just knowing like and he has an idea where we want to be install wise at that time, and because honestly, right now we got OTA and we got Minicamp, and that's definitely where my focus is right now.
How all of these guys having private quarterback coaches impacted your job as a quarterbacks coach for a team?
Yeah. You know what? Coming from college, like it's true of every high school guy now too.
I was going to say probably see more in college.
Very much so. And so it's not a bad thing or a good thing. It is what it is. And I think being able to work with, not necessarily directly with that person, but work in conjunction with what they're working on with their quarterback coach is important. Because a lot of times they're not going there not believing what that quarterback coach is saying. So it's important to make sure that you're using that to your advantage. That you're furthering some of those things that are resonant with that player, with that quarterback, and creating some cohesion there.
Is there also an element of not wanting too many voices?
Yeah, I think so, but I think that comes back to like the player having some discernment. I think every guy's different. I think in some ways, if the worry is, man, I think this guy's got a lot going on, then that becomes more of the focus than if, that guy's handling it fine, then it's less of an issue.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. You got it.